Today, we need to slow down because a woman has passed away in Minnesota after an ICE operation. And depending on who you listen to, you're hearing two completely different stories. Here on Smell the Roses, this conversation isn't, about rage clicks. So if you're here for that, please leave. And this isn't about sides. This is just about facts, power, and what happens when federal authority and local leadership collide. And in this situation, it's unfortunate because a civilian was caught in the middle. Um, Here on Smell the Roses today, we're going to take a breath, walk through what happened, what we know, what we don't know, and why this case matters far beyond Minneapolis. On the morning of the incident, an ICE agent or ICE agents were conducting an immigration enforcement operation in South Minneapolis. And we can all kind of come together with the earlier news this year about the fraud in their city and state, why they were there, right? And then at some point during that operation, agents approached a vehicle, stopped in the street, and inside that vehicle was a 37-year-old woman. We're going to watch video footage, including bystander and body camera video, shows the agent surrounding the car. Seconds later, one of those ICE agents fires multiple shots through the driver's side window. Let's take a look.
Here's another angle.
I'm not mad at you. Show your face. I'm not mad at you. That's okay. We don't change our plates every morning, just so you know. It'll be the same plate when you come talk to us later. That's fine. U.S. citizen, former fucking veteran. You want to come at us? You want to come at us? I say go get yourself some lunch, big boy. Go ahead.
Out of the car. Get out of the fucking car. Get out of the car.
Whoa! The woman was transported to the hospital and she later passed away. That was a part everyone agrees on. And now, where things immediately break apart is why that agent fired. According to ICE and the Department of Homeland Security, the agent fired in self-defense. Federal agents claim the woman was basically attempting to use her vehicle as a weapon, and she posed an immediate threat to the officers that were on the scene. And they described the incident using language like assault and even domestic terrorism. Those are strong words and words that carry legal and political weight. But here's the problem. Minnesota officials are publicly disputing the federal narrative. The mayor of Minneapolis and the governor of Minnesota have both stated that the video evidence does not support claims that the woman was attempting to run officers over. They've accused federal agencies of mischaracterizing the incident and have called for transparency and independent review. This isn't or this isn't, like a very subtle disagreement. This is a open conflict between federal authority and their state leadership, right? The leadership of Minnesota. And that should immediately tell you that something is off here, okay? When these two agencies are not aligned, something is off. And we've been talking already about some red flags that we've been seeing in this state. So something's been off, okay? Experts who have reviewed the footage say that it's unclear whether the agent was in immediate danger at the moment shots were fired. You saw the video. You be the one to judge. Use of force standards, whether federal or local, typically require a clear imminent threat before lethal force is justified. That doesn't mean officers can never defend themselves, but it does mean the bar is extremely high for them, especially when civilians are inside vehicles and surrounded by armed agents. This is where public trust begins to crack. Not that there was a lot of trust in any officers, whether it be police officers or ICE officers. In some communities, there is just never any trust. And in some communities, they would never feel entitled to not follow an officer's order when instructed to exit a vehicle. So because when video evidence exists and the official story doesn't clearly align with what people can see, the ICE agent's credibility suffers. Local community leaders describe the woman as a Minneapolis resident and a mother. Some reports suggest she may have been observing or monitoring ICE activity, something community volunteers have done in cities across the country. I believe in the young man's video, who I forget his name, but he basically blew the lid off of the fraud in Minnesota. And he shows in some of his videos that these volunteers get together in the community and like blow whistles so that people that are from other countries can understand that ICE is in the area and to maybe like stay hunkered down to avoid those ICE activities going on. Like, I guess they're getting stopped and asked for their paperwork and what have you. So we've been seeing videos of these volunteers in these different cities trying to help people that could be considered here illegally. Okay. But her name is just now being widely released by federal authorities. And regardless of immigration status, political beliefs, or assumption, a civilian is passed away. A mother has passed away. So the fact alone deserves serious restraint and honesty. And I hope that is what I'm providing you all here. Okay. We just need to think about this. Why did this happen? Why are people working against ICE agents, whether it be the civilians of a state or the leaders of a state? I don't think the city of Memphis had the same problem because their leadership was willing to work with federal authorities to not have any kind of violence like this, and this is just an unfortunate circumstance that maybe, possibly, I don't know, that leadership in Minnesota and Minneapolis encouraged this behavior, which led to a woman being passed away. That is just the other side of the coin, right? We've got to look at both sides. How do you see it? Because it boils down to federal power operating inside of cities that don't consent to it. Who controls investigations when federal agencies, delete civilians, and whether states have access to that evidence? Because now that the federal authorities have taken over the investigation, that senior leadership of Minnesota is iced out of the process. So they won't get to know what's going on. Had they worked together amicably, I'm sure that these two agencies would work together. But now federal power is taking its executive control. And you could say that, the state of Minnesota kind of, they pushed and they pushed and they pushed, and because they pushed so hard, now they have the shorter end of the stick. And so that's how quickly narratives are shaped before facts are fully examined. Right now, we're more focused on the fact that these two agencies are amicably working together because they both have very different views about the citizens that are in their state illegally. And it's just, it's sad and unfortunate because someone has now taken it so far that they've lost their life, okay? When the same agency involved in a federal shooting controls the investigation, the public skepticism isn't radical, it's somewhat rational, right? So although I am in Georgia and I am not there, it does matter to me that, you know, the federal agency operates in good faith. So I would expect that there be some transparency and accountability, and for them to lay the foundation of legitimacy as to why they acted the way they did. And I think in the video that we just watched that it would be if you asked the woman to get out of the vehicle and she would not exit the vehicle, and now she's moving the vehicle and she's moving it in drive and she's moving it in reverse, and you're around the vehicle, you don't really know what her thought process is. They're obviously not happy that you're there, so maybe you would be more on guard. And so I just feel like I wish she would have just listened and got out of the car, because being arrested and spending a night in jail, but being able to go home to your family the next day, I mean, you can't put a price on that. Just my opinion. In Minneapolis, people have taken to the streets, of course. They're not just angry, but they're frustrated and they're fearful. They have fear that federal enforcement is escalating. They fear that local voices are being overridden, and frustration that, once again, answers feel delayed while official statements move fast. You know, the officials are always going to have a message ready in any of these circumstances, because that's all they do is they plan for the worst, right? They do their strategic planning around any kind of issue that might come up: a tornado, an earthquake, depending on where you live, depending how violent your city is. We are always crafting messages to get ahead of either public health, emergencies, protection, because we don't want to be not considering what could happen in a case of a tornado, not considering, what could happen in the case of a protest. Okay. So these messages just don't appear out of nowhere. They're pretty much a template ready to go, depending on what the situation is and what's happening. All right. And, they appear when people feel unheard, unfortunately, because we've been planning for the worst, but the public hasn't been planning for the worst. Okay. And that's just the nature of the beast. When you are a leader, you have to be prepared for anything that might surprise you. And so although it does seem kind of premature to have all of these responses, ready at the helm to send out, it's to let you know that we hear you. Here's the official message, and now we're doing the official investigation. So there'll be more to come from this, right? We just have to wait. Information usually batches out in 14 days. So within 14 days, we should get, more videos and more evidence, so that we can make better conclusions as to what we're all seeing here. But this is where Smell the Roses lives, right? In the pause, in the space between the headlines and the truth, and asking questions before choosing sides. This woman has passed away, and now there's two versions of the story that exist, and the truth deserves time, evidence, and integrity. We'll continue to follow the story as more facts come out. And until then, I'd like for you all to slow down, stay grounded, and don't let anyone rush you past the questions that matter. Love you all. Bye-bye.